Hi, welcome to KiwaniTalk. We're a public information show put together by the people from the Dearborn Kiwanis Club with help from the students and faculty at Dearborn High. We're welcome to be back in our studio again. Over the summer, they had some changes going on. We were lucky enough to be over at the Dearborn Administrative Center, but we're back home again at WDHS, my alma mater. I was back here right after the Earth's crust finished cooling. My name's Gary Gardner. I'm your host, and today we have to help us learn about Dearborn Council procedures, all the inside stuff we don't know about, is Councilwoman Erin Byrnes from Dearborn City Council. Erin, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you here, and we'd like to little about you. You're a Dearborn person, born and raised.
I am. That's right. I grew up on the east end of town, just off of Schaefer. Went to St. Alphonsus for grade school and high school, and have been in the city almost my entire life. I lived in New York for grad school for a few years, but have been back since 2010.
And right now you work out in Ann Arbor?
I do. I'm on Central Campus at the University of Michigan.
At that school up north?
I know. I enjoy it though. I went to the Dearborn campus for undergrad and have been working in Ann Arbor for almost 7 years now.
Well, see, you and I have a problem. I went to the University of Michigan, which is up in East Lansing. So we'll get past it.
I don't know about that. We can talk about that later.
So, but you live in Dearborn and you're part of the Dearborn community, and for some reason, and I've done it before, but there's a reason that Erin Byrnes wanted to become a Dearborn City Council person. What was it that impelled you to do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, as we mentioned, I grew up in the city, and more recently, I was involved with the City Beautiful Commission, served as the chair for a few years, and I really enjoyed that work. I really like creating tangible, visible change, doing things that people can see in terms of improvements to the city. So my time with City Beautiful, I organized the Eastbourne neighborhood cleanup. We went around, as commissioners still do, and recognized outstanding businesses and homes in the city.
But I didn't get my Christmas award last year.
You didn't? Uh-oh. I'll talk to somebody about that.
You're off that now. So
I am, so I'm not to blame for that.
Okay, there you go.
But yeah, I really enjoyed all of that time on the City Beautiful Commission. Loved the city, was very passionate about it, was also on the Downtown Planning Committee. So I really liked that work. And I wanted to think about how I could elevate that work a little bit. What could the next step be? How could I be of better service, of more service to the community? And I had actually been an intern in the council office when I was an undergrad at U of M Dearborn. And so I had a little bit of the behind the scenes view of what went on. So I felt like that, coupled with my passion for the city, wanting to create that change, council seemed like a logical step.
And the election was in 2017?
It was, that's correct.
How was the election process? How did Erin find that process?
Oh, you know, campaigning was fascinating. I had helped out a little bit here and there on some local campaigns before, but you don't really know what it's like as a candidate until you're in it yourself. I can say I worked harder than I ever thought possible. I was out on doors every day of the week. After work, I took time off from work to campaign. I was fortunate enough to be able to do that. And I really liked being out in the neighborhoods. For me, knocking on doors and talking to people was easily the best part of campaigning. I really enjoyed it.
Election night came.
Yeah.
You're all of a sudden you're there, and then you get sworn in, and then how is it your vision or your what you thought council would be like? What's the biggest surprise that you've had being on council?
You know, I think the biggest surprise for me has been how much goes on behind the scenes. Of course, I knew, you know, before I ran that there were council, committee of the whole meetings, there were study sessions on particular topics of interest, but there are just so many communications that go on behind the scenes between council members, department heads, city staff, our constituents, our residents in the city as well. So a lot of kind of doing your homework before you even get to the meetings. There's a lot of that goes on, and I enjoy that. I didn't quite know how much of that, though, to expect.
So you're not really in a city council for the money, because
Correct.
There's a lot more work than you can imagine. So the city council meetings are there, and people, that's the visible side of it. But factor of 1, 2, 3, 5 hours for prep work for every hour of council meeting at least?
Probably. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. But it's helpful. I think it's good to go in, of course, knowing what you need to know, doing your homework, having the background information, talking to, you know, our city staff who are on the job full-time. Council in Dearborn, of course, is part-time, technically, but I think it all depends on how you do the job and how invested you are and what you can commit to it.
So now that you're on the council, do you get people coming up to you and say, listen, I'm having this problem with X?
Yes.
Or neighbor Y is doing this, and how has that been working out for you?
Yeah, that happens a lot. Actually, a few weeks ago, after one of our meetings, I stopped at the gas station just to fill up my tank and got talking with someone, and it came up that I was on council, and so wound up jotting down his contact information and took a few questions from him. So it really depends on where I am and what's going on, but sometimes we'll have folks who call the council office or will email, our office coordinator. Our team does a great job, and then they'll refer some of the situations to us, and whoever is kind of, on deck at the time can handle that and go about solving the problem.
So people understand what city council is, but they don't really know what city council is. So
Right.
what does city council actually do?
Right. It's a good question. A lot, actually. So some of it has to do with our meeting schedule. Tonight, actually, we have a committee of the whole meeting, which is kind of like a preparatory meeting for our official council meeting where we vote on resolutions and do all of that work on Tuesday. So we always have those meetings. We also conduct study sessions on specific topics, whether it's a particular development in the city, if we have an issue that needs to be resolved. We also, of course, manage the budget. That's our primary function. So budget season really takes place in the spring months, and that's a really busy season for us. We meet with each individual department, go over what they've been doing the previous year, what their expenditures have been, what their needs are coming up, and do the best that we can to make sure that we're delivering a balanced budget and making sure that we're responsible as much as we can be for the residents of the city.
I've always thought that a council person can never have it the right because as a taxpayer, I'm always saying you're spending too much of my money. But
Yeah.
then the people within the city say we need more money to do what we're doing.
Right.
How do you balance that?
It's a push and pull. I can say, for everyone who's on council, we're residents just like everyone else. I always say that. That's my primary function. I'm a resident who happens to be on council. But you do wear a different hat, I think, when you transition from, being a resident to being one who's on council. And it is a push and pull. We do our best to make sure that if we're bringing forth a tax increase or a millage, that it makes sense and that we're not just asking people for money over and over again. We don't want that as residents, and we don't want that for anyone else in the city. And then, when it comes to the budget, of course, we do have a limited pool of funds. We're fortunate in the city. I wouldn't say that we're cash strapped. We're doing well, and at the same time, we want to make sure that we're responsible. So we just go through kind of line by line and have a sense of what works and what the needs are from the city and go about it that way.
So after you got on council, what was the biggest dark side surprise that you found out?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Do I want to reveal this? I don't know. I don't know that I'd say there's a dark side. I think probably the biggest challenge for me has been that I do work full time. I work out in Ann Arbor, so I have a little bit of a trek and a busy schedule with that. So just making sure that I'm where I need to be all the time, that I'm dialed in, and that I've done my homework, and that I've set aside time. I think time management probably is the hardest piece. Yeah.
So the council has this vast sort of oversight over what goes on. How about the interaction with the mayor and the mayor's office?
Good question. So we interact with the mayor pretty regularly, with the administration. We're at meetings probably 2 to 3 times a week together. So I think that interaction is good. When council has questions about specific things, if we're looking to pull data on a particular topic or issue, we'll usually communicate via email either with the administration or our department heads to make sure that the lines of communication are open.
So Dearborn, for the 41 other cities that don't get to be Dearborn residents but get to watch the show, talk about the kind of the diversity that Dearborn has and the challenges that provides for the city.
Yeah, Dearborn is a very diverse city in many ways. We're diverse in terms of our residents, our cultural heritage, which I think is a beautiful thing. I would say that's our #1 strength in the city. So that's a great asset that we have. We're also diverse, I would say, in terms of our housing stock, which is something that people don't often think of. But I think it's great because it allows a lot of different people to live in the city, whether your budget is modest, like mine tends to be, whether you have a lot of money, wherever you are on the socioeconomic scale. I think that most folks can find a home here in Dearborn. And I think we're seeing more diversity being added to our housing stock with art space in the old city hall. That's provided, I think, a great space, residence for artists to come in. We're seeing that with the Ford development on the west end, the Wagner project, getting more housing and apartments in the downtown, so that's been helpful. And I think really balancing the variety and the diversity of needs from our residents is probably one of the #1 tasks on council, that and budgeting. Yeah.
And the odd thing, not odd, but unique thing about Dearborn is we're really two cities divided by Southfield Freeway and a big gap of Ford Motor Company in the middle. And there's really a big sort of neighborhood on the east side, big neighborhood on the west side. Different. And how about that? Is how do you deal with the west side downtown development authority versus the the east side downtown development?
Yeah, that is a challenge for sure. I grew up on the east end of town, and like you said, Southfield cuts right through the city. So that's kind of a logistical or geographical challenge for us because it interrupts our downtown district, and it makes the city in some cases a little less walkable and a little less bikeable. But I think we've done a lot. Our Planning Commission, Christina Shepard-Decius, who heads up our Downtown Development Authority now, they've all done a great job to make the city a little bit more friendly to people in terms of multiple methods of transportation, so I think that's helpful. But we do have that kind of east-west and south end kind of break in the city, which does provide, I think, some challenges for us. I think one of the biggest key pieces is to get feedback from the residents. And again, I think leadership in our downtown development authorities have done a good job of that. I think we're seeing right now a lot of development with the Ford project on the west end, and I really want to make sure that we're continuing to think about how we spread that growth across the city in ways that make sense for the neighborhoods and the residents who live there. It's not a one-size-fits-all. We definitely have pockets in the city, and we want to make sure that everyone's needs are met in terms of, retail, restaurants, walkability, and events that are happening.
And Ford really is, it's kind of a bedroom community in that we have people who live here who go all over the city, but with Ford Motor Company, University of Michigan Dearborn, Henry Ford College, the hospitals, the Beaumont Hospital System people here, hotel stock and all that, there's a lot of people that come into the city every day, and so that's got to be some kind of a challenge too with that commuting issue. But the development, you talked about that, and the one project that I live on the west side of town, and fairly close to Michigan Avenue, and that Ford Motor land development right along Michigan Avenue between like Military and over towards Brady, that's coming along. That's going to be a keystone for the development of that area.
I think so. I think it'll be a really nice catalyst. We're actually having the ribbon cutting next week, and it's a project that's been in development for over a year now, and it's exciting. I think one thing that we're seeing in Dearborn, and I would say throughout Michigan and even the country, is more of a push for a walkable downtown area. And Michigan on the whole has not been known for that, especially in Dearborn. We're the home of Ford Motor Company. We are a car culture. That's part of our roots, it's part of who we are. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think that we're looking at how we can transform that a little bit and grow. So I think having, more seating, more different methods of transportation, people living right on Michigan Avenue, that's exciting. It adds a new energy, and I think it's going to attract a lot of young people and a lot of young professionals, which is kind of a demographic or a population Dearborn hasn't necessarily been known for in terms of being a draw. But I think we're getting there.
Plus one of the premier museums and facilities in the world, Henry Ford Museum.
It's right there. I know.
And the people come from all over the world to visit that. And that again, and that's such a big deal for the city.
It is. It's huge. I know. I have an annual membership. I'm there all the time. It's a wonderful attraction. And I think the Henry Ford does a nice job of looking back and also looking forward. And I think Ford Motor Company does that as well, and we're seeing that right now with the investment in the downtown.
And that sleeping giant you just mentioned of Ford Motor Company, with the massive development of their campuses internally. That's so there's all this construction going on in the city that you may not actually see because it's hidden behind building 1, 3, and 5 over there on Rotunda, but all those things are going on in the city.
Yeah, there are a lot. There are a lot of things going on, I think, with their kind of professional campus, the downtown and Michigan Avenue, as we've talked about, and even, as you know, Ford recently bought the depot, the train station in Corktown, which I'm so excited about. I think it'll be really nice, and I know our planning team is already thinking about, in terms of that multimodal transportation plan, how can we connect further with Dearborn and Detroit? We've got that Michigan Avenue corridor. Let's make use of it.
And my daughter Brianna is really mad that Ford bought that building because she always wanted to buy it
Me
and,
too.
Fix it up. So
she and I both. I know.
Well, we're going to take a little break here. We're talking with Councilwoman Erin Byrnes from Dearborn City Council. We've got some words about Kiwanis in general and the whole thing, what Kiwanis is. Don't go away. We're going to come back and talk about other things in Dearborn and where the city is moving, and I think Erin's going to say it's moving up.
Yes.
Don't go away.
There's never been a better time in our history to be a member of Kiwanis. The impact that we can make is at an all-time high, but we need more members so that we can reach our potential. You can help and lead by example. Invite your family, friends, and coworkers to your club meetings and service projects. Tell them about our service leadership programs. Ask them if they want to improve the community. How can anyone say no? We need to step it up and focus on what needs to be done with our membership because kids need Kiwanis today.
Welcome back to KiwaniTalk. I'm your host, Gary Gardner, on the world's longest running cable access television show. We've been doing this for 1,150 episodes, going back more than any other cable access TV show in the country, and that makes us the longest running one in the world. And we're happy to have on this special, and they're all special for us, episode, Erin Byrnes, Dearborn City Councilwoman. Welcome back to the program, Erin.
Thank you so much.
There's so much going on in Dearborn, and one of our crew pointed out is that it's not just the council, but it's the citizens of Dearborn that make Dearborn the unique kind of place. Our Kiwanis Club, we are, again, we're the #1 longest running TV show, but our club is the #1 peanut selling club in the entire world.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. We had that all for many years. We lost one year with some hurricane club in Florida beat us out, but we're still there.
Gotcha.
But talk about the interaction between the service clubs and how important that interaction is with the city and all the things you talked about, the City Beautiful Commission and the different things that go on. How does that all those interact?
It's huge. I think that to me is kind of the heartbeat of the city. Of course, we have Kiwanis, we have the Rotary Club, they give out scholarships every year. We've got the Dearborn Good Fellows, they have the No Child Without a Christmas program, they do tremendous work. So many different groups, different commissions like City Beautiful, the Library Commission, people who volunteer their time and their energy and really give of themselves to make sure that Dearborn is not just a city but a community. I think that's tremendous.
And also we have probably one of the best police force and fire departments around.
We do.
Talk about the requirement for all our firefighters to be EMTs and all that sort of stuff.
That's amazing. I'm glad you mentioned that actually. Councilwoman Herrick and I, my other new colleague, we were both newly elected almost a year ago now, just did the Dearborn Fire Department's fire ops training last Friday. It was the day after my birthday, so it was a great way to start what's now my 33rd year, and it was fantastic. I went in with a tremendous amount of respect for the work that the men and women of our fire department do, and I left just completely in awe of the dedication to our residents, to each other. It really is a team effort, and it just is incredible. The physical and mental aspect of firefighting in particular, it's astonishing. They do a tremendous job.
Police department too, one of the top in the state. The Chief Haddad does a great job keeping everybody going. And
absolutely.
My best example, a few years ago, I used to have a house by Mildred and Lawrence up in there, and I heard glass breaking about 4 o'clock in the morning, and the neighbor's house, 2 houses down, the woman was out of town. So I called 911. I looked out the window, and within about 5 minutes, I see a car coming west on Lawrence, and a car coming south on Mildred, and then a car coming north on. All 3 cars converged, and someone had thrown a bottle out the window of his car. But the police were there, and that's I think emblematic of Dearborn police service.
I agree. They do a really great job, and as you mentioned, Chief Haddad does a really nice job, I think, in particular, of engaging the community through events, through social media. I think that, to me, he seems like an open book. And that's what we want. That community policing, that engagement with our residents is hugely important. We want people to feel like they know our police officers, like they can trust them, and that we all have all of our best interests at heart. I think that's key.
Back to the monetary side.
Yeah.
The economy has been, the last couple of years, has been getting better. It's great because there's maybe more tax money coming in, but wages are going up. And talk about that dichotomy of more money coming in but higher expenses.
Yeah, that is a challenge. I think, I will say for myself, coming into council now, we're in a much better and somewhat of an easier place than the previous council. I know some of my colleagues who have been involved in council for many years have talked about, the challenges when they were in meetings, in budget meetings, thinking about what are we going to cut. And that's really challenging. And now we're in a place where we're saying, okay, how do we find balance? How do we allocate funds? But it's not so much of a push and pull in terms of cutting, which is great. We are seeing some costs rise. As I mentioned, a diverse housing stock in the city earlier. I think as the economy hopefully continues to improve, and of course with the development in Dearborn, I think that will drive our housing prices up, which is good in some ways, but I think depending on where you are in terms of socioeconomic status, that can be challenging. So I think that's something that is at the front of my mind, making sure Dearborn is still accessible to people.
You've been on the council for a year, so this may not be a fair question, but what kind of vision do you have for our city? Where do you want to see us go?
Yeah, you know, I would like for kind of a balance, if that makes sense. I'd like to see our downtown areas develop more. I'd like to see the city become more vibrant in terms of walkability. As we mentioned earlier, you know, I want you to be able to visit Dearborn and enjoy Dearborn, whether you're in a car, whether you're taking the bus, whether you want to walk or you're on a bike, whatever that may be.
One of those little electric scooters that they rent out. Or
the bird scooters, I've seen those all around. Yeah, it's exciting. I think we're getting there, so I want to see more of that, and I want to see, you know, all of our longstanding traditions in Dearborn be maintained as well. And I think a lot of that comes from the neighborhoods. I really want to see the character and the charm of our neighborhoods maintained. I want people to feel comfortable living in the city and to be able to have really, I think, a variety of lifestyles. Whether you're someone who wants to get up and hit the pavement and be out in the downtown, you know, first thing in the morning, or whether you want to just be able to relax and go to a quiet space and sit and sip your coffee or whatever it may be. I think having that balance, and again, making the city accessible to a variety of people with a variety of lifestyles.
And some of the major events that we have in Dearborn, you know, we could spend time on homecoming, which is just a fantastic type of event. But there's other things that go on. The chambers of commerce put on different events, and there's so much going on in the city.
Yeah.
How can people find out about Dearborn if they're out there and they say, I see this Councilwoman Erin Byrnes? Where can we go to find more information?
Good question. So I would say that kind of depends on your style. If you're tech savvy, of course, social media is a great place. City of Dearborn government is on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Our downtowns as well. Downtown Dearborn is a great kind of page to follow, has a lot of events in the downtown district, so those are really helpful. If you're not someone who utilizes technology a lot, say you're at the library or at City Hall, we have pamphlets and brochures and kind of printed documents that can help you kind of wayfind, make your way around the city, and then figure out what some of the events are. So that's helpful, and our city calendar as well. They do a great job
All
with that.
those things are there.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, you've been on council for a year. And not that I want to anticipate, when is your next move going to be, but do you like being on the council?
I do. I'm really enjoying it so far. I like being able to really serve the residents in a way that's direct. I feel like council is really kind of the front line of the city in the best way. We have public meetings every other week that people can come to talk to us. They can come to the office, they can email, they can call us. So I think we really are in a lot of ways the front line of constituent services and connecting with the residents. So I enjoy that.
Constituent services. What's the toughest question you've had from one of your constituents so far, and how successful were you in resolving the issue?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. We've had a few calls about rodents, rats in particular.
Right.
That's a downside to a lot of the development and the construction. Critters get displaced when things get dug up. So that's been a challenge, and I think we were able to address it. That problem in this particular instance has been mitigated, but it's still a challenge. I think that issue in particular, it's not just an individual thing, it's a block issue, it's a community issue. So I think making sure folks have the education up front in terms of how to prevent problems like that is key. And I've learned a lot through that as well.
When they first brought out the big wheeled trash cans, I thought, now I love them because you can throw so much in there.
Right.
I put more in the recycling every time.
Right.
And wheel them out, and they're good. And those also, for the critter control, they can't get into them as much. Although one of my trash can broke, I got a hole in the back of it. I need to get that replaced.
Yeah.
But who do I call about? No,
Yeah, we can talk about that later.
I could probably figure that out.
Sure.
So here we are at the end of 2018. Where do you see Dearborn at the end of your first term in office, and then way beyond? What would you like to see happen down the road?
Oh gosh, so many things. I know you just mentioned recycling. I'm very environmentally conscious, so I would like to see us expand some of those opportunities. Of course, now we have weekly recycling pickup, which is great. I would love to see us go plastic water bottle free in all of our city spaces.
Better hide these
I
things
know,
here,
we've got a
right?
couple here. I try to steer clear of that. I'd love to see us really reduce plastic waste. That's near and dear to my heart. I think that's important now and into the future. And also to think about, how can we kind of marry our planning work in terms of transportation and mapping out new developments with our sustainability work. I think those two things going hand in hand will be key. And I think Dearborn can be a leader in clean technology and reducing plastic waste. I think that's huge.
And I think that the heads up or the head start that we have is with Ford Motor Company being here, one of the international leaders on the self-driving vehicle, autonomous vehicle,
Sure.
I should say.
Sure.
All those type of things and
Yeah.
all that sort of
It's exciting.
So, if you are now having the opportunity as representing the city to talk in our last minute or so to people out there watching, why would someone want to come live in Dearborn?
Oh, I love that question. Dearborn is diverse, as we mentioned earlier, in many ways, which I think is our biggest asset. We're also, I think, really conveniently located. We're right next door to Detroit, which I think is a great thing. We're not far from Canada. We're close to Royal Oak and Ferndale. There are a lot of different places that you can connect with when you live in Dearborn. We also have fantastic neighborhoods, and the food is unparalleled. I mentioned earlier I work in Ann Arbor. Anytime someone mentions the food there, I always say, you got to come to Dearborn. We have the best food. So that's good for
one
us.
thing, too, we're close to the airport.
Yeah,
Where
we
I
are.
live, I am 12 minutes to the airport. So people
Nice.
come in, they land, and when you get off the plane, call me.
Yeah.
I'll meet you. It's a great,
You're
great
right there.
location.
I agree.
Well, Erin Byrnes, Dearborn City Councilwoman, thank you for coming on the program. It's great to
Thank
have you
you.
here. I'm sure that your career with the city, you're going to get into city council, and then you never know what that little ladder, but it'd be a ways down the road. Mayor O'Reilly, you're safe for a while, right?
Yes,
You're going to be safe for a while?
I think so.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for coming on to
Thank you.
KiwaniTalk. It's been great to see you, and
Thank you.
congratulations on the election and moving forward. And I hope that the energy that you've shown will be carried forward to some of all the council members, because you got this energy drive.
Yes.
I'd like to see that.
Definitely.
I want to thank you for tuning in to KiwaniTalk. We're, again, one of the longest running shows in the country, in the world, and people like this from our community, from Dearborn, make this place an extra special place to be. I'm Gary Gardner. See you again next time. Bye-bye.